If you're going through the struggle right now, look at that struggle as an opportunity to get stronger and strengthen that weakness that you're going through and come out the other side better because of it.
Welcome to the Referrals Podcast, the show designed to help everyone from the solopreneur to the Fortune 500 company win the referral game. And now, here is your host, Michael J. Maher.
Welcome everyone to another amazing episode of Referrals Podcast. They're like, you always say it's going to be an amazing episode of Referrals Podcast before I listen to it. Well, guess what? Haven't they all been amazing? These are amazing episodes of Referrals Podcast. Very, very special guest today. I cannot wait to invite you to the hardcore closer, the kingmaker, and maybe the best title is husband and dad. But we have an exciting guest today. I cannot wait to dive into it. The first thing I want to do is I want to give a big shout out to Jake Smoke, who is a U.S. Marine veteran in San Diego. He said, just completed a small but mighty event specifically for veteran-owned businesses and veteran nonprofit groups who are looking to connect with other veterans. 8 referrals given, 3 referrals received, a total of $19 spent using the event mastery system. And to be completely transparent, I did very little prep for this event. Future monthly events will be dialed in to ensure I can provide the most value. Jake, I love it. I appreciate it. Your first event, you got 3 referrals, which in San Diego could lead to $100,000 in income. Pretty good deal. And the fact that you only had to spend $19 when it was all said and done. Hey, making money, and it's perfectly legal. When are you going to have your event? Check out eventmastery.com. If you don't like that URL, go to funleadgeneration.com. We'd love to have you. We'd love to help you run an event. We'd love you to get referrals guaranteed. Speaking of that, one of the largest referral groups out there, it's joingengen.com. Are you looking for referrals? Get to our Facebook group. Welcome to the Generosity Generation, joingengen.com. And I am so excited about today. I want to get right to our special guest. Today, we have someone who embodies the spirit of resilience, tenacity, and no-nonsense success. Ryan Stewman, widely known as the hardcore closer, is an entrepreneur, sales expert, and author. From overcoming personal struggles to building multiple successful businesses, Ryan has become a leading voice in the world of sales and personal development. He's here to share his insights on mastering the art of sales, creating a winning mindset, and achieving the success you deserve. Get ready for a conversation that's going to inspire you, going to motivate you, and going to make you take action. Let's give a warm Referrals Podcast welcome to Mr. Ryan Stewman. Ryan, welcome.
Hey, that's me. I'm glad to be here. And you know, we've known each other for a long time online, and it's great to actually do something together here, man. So thank you for having me on.
Well, 100%. Your story is absolutely amazing. And I have to tell you that very rarely on Referrals Podcast do we get into the backstory. A lot of times we'll be talking to somebody, I'll go, all right, let's go right to what you did to get referrals. Well, your story is so amazing about overcoming adversity and everything else that you've done. And it's truly inspiring. Can you share a bit about your journey and pivotal moments that shaped who you are? Just kind of your background?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a prolific mistake maker and perpetual struggle taker. You know, I was adopted at age 7 and changed my entire name and identity, dropped out of school. And I'm not bragging about any of this to the audience, by the way, but dropped out of school when I was 15 years old. And last grade that I completed was the 8th grade. Went to work, sold drugs, went to prison for selling drugs, got out of prison, changed my life, became a millionaire, went back to prison again for guns. There was a snafu in the state and federal regulations on guns that I was unaware of. So I had to go do another 15 months of my life in prison. Got out, got back to work again, became successful. 2010, Dodd-Frank came in, and once again, the state license that I had for my job was superseded by federal regulations, and I lost my job. And I went on to be the creator of social media marketing. I mean, this industry didn't exist. There weren't the Grant Cardones. I mean, they were there, but they weren't online. Gary Vaynerchuk wasn't writing Crush It yet. I mean, in 2010, telling somebody, hey, you can make money from Facebook was like, today probably telling somebody, hey, fentanyl's good for you. You know what I mean? It was an unheard of thing. And it was very hard to sell back then. Now it's common knowledge. You get a bunch of referrals from social media and people become millionaires and even billionaires from social media. But just 14 years ago, that was like speaking a foreign language to people. And so I had to pioneer my own industry because I needed something that the government wasn't going to get in the way. And I could just kind of carve my own lane and do my own thing and be very creative. And, it took about 3 or 4 years for it to really catch on. But since then, I've had, over 83,000 people purchase products from me. I've built amazing communities, amazing relationships. I've been with my wife for 10 years and we have 4 kids. We've been married 7 years. And I'd like to say now I'm living this perfect rainbow and sunshine life, but I'm a business owner, a father, a husband. I've got the same struggles that everybody else does. And I'm just a normal guy that's refused to quit. If I just had to put like what maybe you want to know the hack to overcoming adversity, it's refusing to quit. I mean, there's a lot of people who may have gone through one of those things, and I just gave you the quick 30,000 foot view, but that may have used that as an excuse their whole life to be a failure or not make it. And I was just like, man, I'm not going to quit. I want to be an example for people that no matter what hardship they've come through, maybe they'll think of me and go, well, that dude beat it. He doesn't seem like he's that special. So maybe I won't quit and I'll just keep rolling too.
Well, 100%. What I love about this is I think everyone has problems, but nobody had the problems you had. I mean, that's the truth. Like what you bounced back from, 99.9% of people have never even experienced and might not come back from. One thing that you said is when you went to prison the first time, you said you transformed your life. What was that catalytic moment or that idea, or what did you do? Because I want you to know, people don't know this, but a lot of times when people go to prison, they continue to just go to prison, right? And eventually it's for the long term. Well, you were set out to change that. How long did you go to prison the first time? And what was that transformative moment or idea for you?
Well, I went for 2 years. I got caught selling cocaine and I sold whatever, right? Well, I come from an era where social media in the 90s, this was 1999. So in the 90s, in the neighborhood I grew up, the drug dealers had money. There wasn't social media influencers. There wasn't an internet. And in the neighborhood that I grew in, there wasn't trust fund kids. It was drug dealers that had the money. And so I thought, well, I'll work a full-time job and sell drugs. I literally worked as an electrician in the morning from 6:30 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon. And at 5 o'clock, I worked at a Mexican restaurant as the greeter fellow that gave everybody chips and salsa and asked them if their meal was good. And then in the nighttime, I sold drugs till about midnight. And that was my life. I worked 3 jobs and I was trying to get ahead, and the drugs paid for my rent and the jobs paid for anything else that I needed. And we're talking in the 90s, I was probably making $4.75, $5 an hour. So, I mean, just like, poverty money.
Right.
That was all I knew, especially since, I didn't finish high school. And so I go to prison. My lawyer in court says, hey, listen, they want to give you 20 years probation. And I'm like, dude, I'm not even 20 years old. I was 19 at the time. And I didn't make it the first 20 years without getting into
Right.
no way I will be monitored for 20 more. And he goes, well, let me go talk to the DA. He goes back to the DA, comes in again. He says, listen, they'll give you 2 years in prison. It's your first offense. It's your only offense. You'll probably do 6 months, make parole, and be back out. You may not even leave the county jail here. So I was like, 6 months, 20 years. I'm going to take 6 months, right? And about a week later, I was shipped to a maximum security prison.
Oh, God. Wow.
At 19 years old, I probably weighed 130 pounds. I mean, I was skinny. I looked like a golf ball sitting on top of a tee. And, I got sent to a maximum security prison where maybe there was 10 of us white guys on the row, and it was a very difficult time. And during those 2 years, I didn't get out in 6 months. I served like 19 or 20 of the 20 months of the 2-year period. There was a mandatory release for me to go to the halfway house after I got out. And so I served almost all my time. And I went to 7 or 8, I'd have to count them, and we don't have time for that, but I went to 7 or 8 different medium and maximum security state penitentiaries.
In 2 years.
In 2 years, they shipped me around a lot, and it was absolutely horrible. I mean, you see the movies where the guy walks down the run and everybody's yelling at him. Imagine having to do that like 6, 7, 8 times
in 2 years. I mean, that
and being a skinny white dude and being
new, young.
oh God, it was a terrible experience. Think with the blessing of God, I got out of there without, losing my virginity to a man or anything like that. But it was a lot of scary times, a lot of fights. And I'm not a fighter, man. I'm a lover. And I know you can't tell by my face or my voice, but I really am. And I hated it so much that I told myself, hey, when I get out of here, and I made a pact between, I seen a lot of guys in there that were like religious while they were in prison, but like, dude, you killed a family of 10. Like, church isn't really going to save you, brother, and I didn't want to be like that. So I'd love to say I made a pact with God or something, but I made a pact with myself. And I said, when I get out of here, I'm going to treat my life as if the government is watching me at all times. Ironically, they are now to all of us, but I'm going to treat my life as if the government's watching me at all times. And I'm not going to do anything in the dark or behind closed doors that I wouldn't do in the public.
Yeah.
And so I got out, I got an opportunity to work at a car wash for a family member. And I worked my way up from $4.50 an hour all the way up to being general manager of several locations. And my thought process was, if I just become the best car washer on the planet, then maybe one day I can own one of these things. I've always been an all-in kind of guy. And there were about 2004, there was a lady who was a regular customer, an older lady. She's passed away now. And she said, you have to be the hardest working guy here. She goes, you speak Spanish, so you learn the language of the other guys that work here. You do all their jobs. You always try to sell me something. You wipe off cars, you vacuum them. It seems like you know everything here. I want to give you a job. And I said, lady, well, what kind of job are you offering? She goes, it's a job in mortgages. I never heard that word in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, what's that? She goes, it's home loans. And I'm like, look, I pay my apartment in cash because I'm a felon. They wouldn't rent to me. So I had to pay in cash, right? And I'm like, I own a 1968 Ford F-250 that I paid $1,000 for. I know nothing about finances. And she goes, that's fine. And I said, well, I'm also a felon. I don't know that I can do that job. She goes, what'd you go to jail for? And I said, well, convicted of selling drugs. She goes, oh, they'll love you in the banking business. She was right, but I got drugs. But I never sold another drug since then, since I got in trouble the first time. And so I got out and I took the job. And so I got out of the car wash on a Saturday, and on a Monday I showed up in my Sunday best for this mortgage job. I'm wearing work boots, Levi jeans, and a button up like a polo shirt. And I walk in there and all the bankers are wearing like suits and Armanis and all this fancy stuff that I'd never even seen other than just people that had come through the car wash. And they would work. And see, at the car wash, I worked 80 hours a week. That was how I made overtime and made additional money and stuff. And these guys would come in at like 10 and leave at 2.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, you know what? I can outwork these guys. Let me get a thesaurus. Let me get a dictionary. Let me get the loan processing book and figure this stuff out. And I'll just teach myself. Within about 45 days of working there, I end up making about $30,000 in commissions. I got lucky. A lot of people that get into real estate mortgages, they have somebody in their warm market that can refinance or buy a home. They get pretty lucky in the beginning. And, about 6 months into it, I'm running out of money, and obviously got that 30 grand, went and got a new vehicle and a nicer apartment and all this stuff. So now I'm running out of money because I hadn't done loans in a couple of months. And I'm like, dude, I got to figure something out. And on my TV, Michael, I see an ad for, it was either Rich Dad, Poor Dad or Robert Allen's No Money Down Real Estate. And I thought, man, that's going to be a room full of people who need what I have, money. So I went to the event, watched everything, and I didn't buy the product, but I watched everybody who walked out with this, how long ago that was. They had DVDs in a duffel bag. And everybody that walked out, I gave them my business card. I said, if you're going to buy real estate, I'm the mortgage guy. I can help you get in with no money down. And about 2 weeks later, a guy called me, and I ended up doing 54 refinances for this guy on investment properties that he had so he could cash them all out. And he kind of took me under his wing and taught me investing. Flash forward, that was 2004. Mm-hmm. In 2005, I made $770,000 writing mortgages, and I owned 32 homes, and I was flipping homes left and right, working with builders. And man, I mean, my life was on top of the world, but I worked from home. I learned how to hack into the bank server from home and had permission to do this. And I had 32 renters coming over and paying me, realtors dropping off contracts, clients coming over to sign stuff, and the cops in the small town that I lived in thought I was selling drugs again. So they kicked in my door. And when they kicked in my door, they didn't find any drugs, but they found a pistol in my closet. And apparently there was a Brady bill or something like that where you can only have 10 rounds in a pistol. And the state of Texas says you can have a gun in your primary residence. I beat that case, but then the ATF picked it up and said, we don't recognize the state's rights for you to bear arms. And they sent me to federal prison. So I really walk out of prison with nothing, walk into prison. And I had gotten married during this 2-year time. And walked into prison, a millionaire. 6 months later, my ex-wife then at the time, left me for another dude, took all my money, all my houses, sold them off. They ran off together, got married, divorced me. I walked out of prison with $25 to my name and lived in a half house. So, but I knew 2 things when I got out. I knew that, hey, I'm not locked up anymore. And I have an opportunity to go prove to myself that it wasn't a fluke, that I can do this again. When I was in federal prison, Michael, the second time that I went to prison, it was federal prison. I made a pact with myself that, you know what, I'm going to have some downtime. I'm going to work out every day. I'm going to read a book a day. So I got out of there a year later, and I've read like 350 books, because some books like the Bible and Atlas Shrugged took me several days to read them. But man, I came out of there like super educated, super motivated. And when I was in the federal prison, they look at your paperwork, the guards do, and I didn't snitch on anybody because I didn't have a snitchable offense. And so a couple of guards were like, hey, they show your finances in this paperwork. And they're like, hey, you made pretty good money. What'd you do? And I told them, they say, hey, my mama needs a house. And can you help her? And so I helped my friends on the outside get hooked up, got 2 guards, one of them got him and his wife a house, and the other one got his mom's house refinanced. And the guards started looking out for me.
You literally walked out of prison with 2 mortgages to do?
No, I did them while I was in there. I didn't do them. I outsourced them to my friend.
That's awesome.
And the guards took a liking to me because of that. And I wasn't a violent offender, and I helped them out. And one day, this big giant essay comes down to my cell, and he's like, hey, we need you upstairs. And I'm like,
uh-oh.
Whoa. I go up to their room, and these guys are living in like the free world. They're like up there smoking weed with Rolexes on and Reeboks. I'm like, dude, you guys' prison experience is totally different than mine, Yeah. And they said, hey man, all these guards, they really like you, man. Who are you telling on? And I'm like, I'm not telling on anybody. And I explained to them what I did, and they go, oh, really? Well, we get out of here in like 5 years, and we got a bunch of drug money that we need to clean up because we want to get out of the drug business and own real businesses. Can you help us with that? And I'm like, are you asking me to help you launder money? They're like, I guess. And I'm like, I mean, what are they going to do? Put us in prison, right? So I started teaching these guys how to clean up their money so that when they got out, they had legit businesses,
assets,
all these assets and stuff through real estate. And so I started, this is how I got into the seminar business, man. I would go into the library, and there would be the Mexican mafia, the Bloods, the Crips, the Aryan Brotherhood. They'd all be in there taking notes, figuring out how to clean up their drug money and get their life together. And when I got out of that, I was like, man, you know what? I got a knack for really teaching people this stuff. It's kind of pretty cool. You know what I mean? Like, that's how my whole journey into helping people and all that got started, was in the prison library.
That's amazing. And the education that you got, you definitely used that time wisely. All right. So you're out the second time. You can't do mortgages now, right? Is that right? Or could you?
The second time I got out, I was still able to do mortgages because the license that I had was still active. And it was the state of Texas. Back then, you got mortgage license per state. Now it's a federal thing. So when Don happened, they moved it to the federal level. I'm still on federal parole in 2010. And so they said, hey, you can't have a job anymore. I was a top producer at the largest mortgage bank in Texas. And they were like, bro, we hate this, but our attorneys say you got to go. And I'm like, dude, I went from making 70, 80 grand a month to, and that was in down times, but I had this thought is like, when I got out of prison, my sister hooked me up with Facebook, and I would put my like top producer plaque on Facebook and be like, top producer again this month. And this was 2008 all the way up to 2010.
What a crappy year to get out of prison. 08. Oh my gosh. It would have been good to be in prison 08, 09. Like, I felt like I was in prison. I did real estate those 2 years.
Yeah, I still crushed it, man, because I was so hungry. You know what I mean?
I did short sales.
Yeah. But you're right. It was very different than the 2004 through 2007 time. So,
Sure.
but there was a lot less competition. A lot of people would quit. So, it was kind of open season for me, and I was hungry. And, but people would hit me up on Facebook and say, "Hey, I saw that you were a top producer. Can you do my mortgage?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course." Right. And so when I lost my license, I was like, "Man, I'm going to teach loan officers how to get leads from Facebook. Nobody's doing that." And I accidentally stumbled on it because I was only putting the top producer plaque up so that my ex-wife might see it and go, "Man, dang it, he got it all back. I should have stuck with him."
There you go. Yeah.
So, interesting. I could complain about those things, but looking back, I'm like, God was connecting dots. He was showing me how to get an education. He was showing me that I could help people. He was showing me that even though I was taking pictures to try to maybe get my ex-wife back, that he opened up a whole new lane that's allowed me to change a lot of lives, including my own and my family's at this point, man. So even though they're very tough and trying and depressing times in my life, I'm very grateful for them now, looking back, connecting those dots.
Yeah, I love it. And that really like in the generosity generation, my tribe of trust, we build it off 3 values: love, generosity, and appreciation. And the appreciation, I call that love and reaction. So love is the superpower, but it's a latent superpower. It sets in everybody, and most people don't use it or tap into it. But generosity is love in action. So generosity is giving massive value first, going out and helping. Well, then we have life happens to us. It happens for us. Things happen. And like, we need to tap into appreciation. And it's really easy. Everybody finds it really easy to appreciate the good things. Oh, I had a blessing, right? I just got a closing. I did. And the big thing that I have to teach people is we need to even appreciate the bad things. We need to appreciate the bad times. We need to appreciate the setbacks and the things that happen to us, because they are what make us who we are. We need to appreciate it all, which, honestly is easier said than done. But I have to tell you, living in this, one of the things that I'm speaking to realtors about right now is, I'm going to tell you right now that what if I told you in 6 months, you're going to write a handwritten note to the lead attorney, Michael Ketchmark, on the lawsuit that started this entire NAR settlement proposal and all these lawsuits. You're going to send him a handwritten note thanking him for the changes that are happening in the real estate world right now. And you literally could hear a pin drop in the room, because that's not how they're framing it. They're framing it that this guy is like the biggest thing since the devil, right? And it's like, no, we need to appreciate this change, because the best are going to survive, and the best aren't just going to survive. They're going to thrive, and it's already happening. So I love what you said about you appreciate these tough times. And I'm sure that would have been not a great thing to maybe say to you, your second stint in prison. But looking back, it's maybe easier to appreciate these times. When did Hardcore Closer come about? How did that come about? And by the way, one of the greatest nicknames ever, So like, how did that come about? And what were you doing at the time?
It's a hilarious story, and it happened by accident. So obviously, if you're a lender, you're a closer, right? You're closing deals, closing loans.
C to C, clear to close, baby. Best 3 words.
That's 3 words.
Real estate world.
Yeah. Right. And so in 2010, I'm thinking about taking a job as a marketing rep for a title company. Now, let me preface, and I didn't mean zero disrespect to any title reps out there, but being a loan officer and going to a title rep, I felt like I went from the top of the food chain to the bottom of the barrel, right? And so I'm sitting in this interview. My friend of mine, he's like, "No, man, you're going to love this job." And so after the interview's over with, the lady that interviewed me was like again, no disrespect, like an old blue-haired lady, like a lot of title ladies were back then, at least. And
yeah, we've seen it.
A card on it, and her title is closer. And I'm telling my friend, I'm like, that's hilarious. Like, she's a hardcore closer, I bet, man, And I was like, wait, that's actually pretty catchy. And I went and jumped on a computer real quick and registered that domain for $10. And I didn't do anything with it. About a year later, when I started coaching loan officers, I was like, let me turn them into hardcore closers. And so I started putting content on that site. At the time, it was like a WordPress site, and it was, I would teach them how to, just make tutorial videos on how to do stuff. But I wasn't trying to be the hardcore closer. That wasn't a name I picked or whatever. It was just like, that was what I was going to call the people that I worked with. And one day I'm at a bar, maybe 6 months down the road, and this guy came up behind me and he like put his hand on my shoulder and he goes, "Hey man, you're the hardcore closer." And I went, "You go to my website?" And he goes, "Yeah, man, I learned a bunch of stuff from your website, dude. I actually go there every week when you update it." It's the first time I ever met a quote unquote fan of me ever in my life. Right. And I'm like, oh, wow, that guy called me the hardcore closer. I'm just going to own that, because I knew from prison, when you get a nickname, it sticks.
That's
And if
right.
it's a cool nickname, you better run with it, because the next one may be a very embarrassing nickname and you're not going to be able to shake that. Right. So
That's
I'm
right.
like, yeah, that's me. I'm the hardcore closer. And then, so in the future, my video started out, "Hey, it's Ryan Stewman, the hardcore closer." And it's stuck from there. But the intention was never for me to be the hardcore closer. But like I said, when that guy said that, I was like, that sounds pretty cool, actually. And that's a good nickname that I would like to keep now that someone's actually calling me that, so that I don't get a, "Hey, that's the social media butterfly," or whatever. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how that became, about. And that was,
What year was that? What year was that?
2010.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was like 2010, something like that. And people don't know this, and maybe you don't even remember, and I don't remember. So you're going to have to actually remind me a little bit. Is like, I remember I posted in Sales Talk for Sales Pros, which, by the way, everybody here that's listening, go to Sales Talk for Sales Pros, the Facebook group, go check it out. Over 100,000 salespeople strong. And I really encourage you, if you're a realtor or lender, to get in there, because it is going to give you a different perspective. It's going to show you some different things. And I would even encourage you to check out Apex, which is what Ryan runs as an organization. But it's one of those where you and I didn't hit it off very well in the beginning. I didn't, and I don't even know what I said. So, but later on, I remember posting on something about billionaires and watches or something like that. And you were like, "Maher, you were a hater." And I was like, "Oh my God, what?" Like, I don't remember that at all. Like, what did I say? And so what was our first interaction? Do you remember that at all? Or what was that all about?
You had a really good way, and it's weird when you don't know somebody. Sometimes somebody will say something in a comment, and I, and just like everybody else, we receive that how we are, not how the person maybe intended it to be, right?
Yeah.
And
Especially text, right? Anything that's in writing, there's no feeling, there's no inflection, there's no context in some cases. So I definitely get it. And I've done that too. I've definitely taken what people said wrong, especially if they're straight to the point people and they hit me up with like 3 words. And it's like, whoa, that was blunt. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
And oftentimes somebody might make a comment, like, let's say you make a comment on one of my posts and you're like, you got to do XYZ, but you didn't necessarily mean me. You were actually talking to the public, actually reading.
There you go.
So things can get a little misconstrued sometimes. So something like that had happened in the sales talk. And I thought, man, this guy, he just doesn't like me. But also I've started and again, this isn't an ego thing. It's verifiable, but I've started a lot of trends on the internet because there was nobody to go and join a mastermind or a coaching program for what I'm doing early on in the game. And now they're everywhere. They're all over your newsfeed, but there wasn't a long time ago. And so, I'm kind of carving my own lane here. So I've done some things over the years, like, start arguments with people for engagement and be very polarizing and, those kind of be the hardcore closers, this like polarizing individual. And as I've grown older and matured and had a lot more empathy and understanding, I'm not that way anymore. So I'm sure it was something along those lines too. And probably, Michael, I was probably like, "Hey, this guy's got a good following,
Let's pick a fight.
Get some kind of beef going,
That's right.
Just people pick sides or whatever the case may be." And so I would imagine it was something like that. But, you have been a really good way of encouraging me to think differently, because we don't always agree, and I know what it was. I just realized what it was. You said something to the tune of, "Hey man, you shouldn't be cussing on here." Yeah.
There you go.
At that time, every other word out of my mouth was the F word. And so, and I'm being respectful of your fans here by not that, but
well, they've heard him before. They're probably laughing right now because I dropped the S and I dropped the F, and I especially if they've been on a private Zoom with me, they've probably heard something that hurt their ears. I talk about sex. I talk about, like, I wake them up all the time. So this is pretty interesting. It sounds like I've evolved into a little bit of you and you've evolved into a little bit of me.
Hey,
That's what you know, so I think there's a little bit of that in the background. So I love that. Now,
I used to get that all the time, Michael. People were like, you shouldn't cuss on here. I'm like, listen, everybody else is being, like very blend in and very social media proper. I'm just going to be me on here. And it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But I even had Grant Cardone early on. He's like, you can't show up in a short sleeve t-shirt with your tattoos everywhere, trying to tell people how to be successful. And now you flash forward and he's kind of turned into that as well. He doesn't have tattoos, but he's the guy that cusses.
No, he does. He has an Apex tattoo. You didn't know that? It's on his left. It's on his left shoulder. So no, I'm kidding. But no, I have to tell you, one of the greatest strategies that you have done is challenge like someone that's seemingly speaking conventional wisdom, right? Like the Grant Cardone. Everybody's like, he's so popular, he's so this, and you're just like, bam, here's a couple things that maybe you need to think about where he's wrong. Dave Ramsey, maybe, I agree with some, but man, here's where he's wrong. And that is, I think, one of the big things that we can learn, everybody here, mortgage, realtor, whoever you are, is first of all, don't just accept what a top producer says from stage or on a panel, is be challenging it. Like literally in your mind, be thinking, well, is that the whole answer? Is that the real answer? Or does he really do that? Does she really? Have they ever implemented that? It's amazing how many times I know what somebody just said from stage. They've never done it. They've never done what they just said. And I know it because I'm the person that's hosting the event. But it's one of those where I love that you challenge authority, so to speak. And there's actually, that is a brand strategy, is if you're number 2 or 3 or 4, challenge number 1, because you're going to go from nobody knowing you to anybody that's kind of tuned into number 1 is now going to know you. So the brand rises in value, and I absolutely love you. And the other thing too is I love your post in Sales Talk with Sales Pros. They're a little long for me, but I read them all, so that tells you enough. And what's interesting is that I don't know if you put it in my head or if it's something that just seeing it has inspired me, but I have been much more vocal and standing up more against conventional wisdom, right? And like, I just posted something that was pretty brutal to Maher. And I think the old days, Michael Maher would have been just fine, kind of not making ripples, not making waves. And now I don't give a shit. Like, I don't care. Like, this is how I feel. This is what I think. And let's have a discussion about it. I'm not closed-minded. If somebody said, well, have you thought about these 3 points? And they actually countered what I said, I would go, I hadn't thought of those 3 points. Those are really good points. Good call. And you know what? I stand corrected. But I think that, and I want to just thank you for that, is I think you definitely have given me the permission, because you're that way, to be a little stronger with my points and not worry about being popular, but being more like, geez, we're doing referrals. I mean, why doesn't everybody do business building on relationships and getting a lot of referrals? And I've been coy about it. I've been behind the scenes. No longer. I am on a freaking event rampage right now. Like, businesses need to have events. You built a building in Dallas, and part of the building you put in an event center. I mean, how brilliant is that? And it's just one of those where, like, no more Mr. Nice Guy. It's no longer, love, generosity, and appreciation is no longer a weakness. It's no longer seen as weak. We're freaking hardcore closers, Ryan. We're hardcore lovers, generous, and appreciative people. And I just want to acknowledge that.
I like Dave Ramsey and Grant Cardone, but that doesn't mean I always have to agree with them. I like Donald Trump. I don't always agree with him. Yeah, I like Joe Biden. I don't always agree with him, and like you said, Dave's always, his audience is teachers, and they make $40,000, $60,000 a year. That's
engineers
audience. You know what I mean? And Grant's audience is, people that just want to give them money. That's not the same either. And that's not always the right thing to do. I've challenged him and been like, if you maybe bought maybe only one jet instead of 5, you might be able to pay your investors a little bit more money, and that would be a win-win situation.
Right.
But he can do what he wants to with it. It's his money and in his agreement. So, but I have a tremendous amount of respect for those guys, but that doesn't mean I have to just drink the Kool-Aid and always agree with them, and I think if something needs to be said, it needs to, another perspective is usually welcomed anyway.
Yeah, I love it. And I love your social media presence. I love what you've done with it. Let's talk about how do we make the rubber meet the road, so to speak. How do you take social media engagement and turn it into sales? How do you make that leap? Because I'm not sure how many people have figured that out yet.
Well, I've done it to the tune of a little over $50 million in my career and in sales just from social media alone, not counting the referrals and things of that nature. And I don't obviously have all of that because it's been over a 14-year period of time, but it escalated a lot in the last few years. So I've got some experience there is what I'm getting at. Here's my first strategy that I ever tried, which I think your audience will really appreciate, and it really ties in with your message here. So I catch talent early on. Mike Reese and Jay Kender, who are good friends of mine, and they actually kind of gave me some of the ideas that I started with early on. And in 2017, Mike Reese introduced me to David Goggins. David didn't have a book out. He didn't have social media. Mike met him running a marathon, and he was like, he was the only other black dude in the marathon. You got to meet him, Ryan. And we all went to a meeting or a Joe Rogan event together. And so, I coached with David Goggins and helped him get on Instagram and some other stuff long before, anybody knew who he was, man. Cause I was like, the world needs to hear your story. Same with a lot of famous influencers, a lot, like dozens of them over the years. But my first venture into that was in 2013. I reached out to Frederick Eklund, Josh Flagg, Ryan Serhant, all the guys that are on probably the TV shows that realtors hate because they know it's staged, but $1 million listing guys. And my thought process was, okay, so I'm a nobody. I'm making a little bit of money, a couple $100,000 a year selling to loan officers because I had the credentials, but I'm out of a warm market and I'm getting a few referrals, but I want to get bigger. So I go find these guys. They're on season 2 of $1 Million Listing, and Josh Flagg and Frederick Eklund both agree to do trainings with me. So people pay $1,000 realtors, and they learn how to sell high-end real estate, right? And all I am is basically writing the scripts for them, producing the videos, the webinars. I'm like the guy behind the scenes. But my thought process was, okay, Frederick, he's the most popular of the two. He had about 16,000 Facebook followers at the time. And I was like, okay, so I ran ads, got a bunch of real estate agents on there, and I'm the guy closing them and calling them and making relationships with them. Frederick's just the talent, right? And my thought process was, I'm going to get to know all these real estate agents, and then I can go back to the loan officers and say, hey, if you become a client and you learn this stuff, you do a good job, I'll introduce you to one of the top producing real estate agents in your area because I'll know them all. So if I can go get my ideal customer's best customer, and I don't have anything to really sell to them other than my personality and just my friendship, then I can be able to pair people together, which will make the loan officers want to come do business with me. And, that strategy worked really well. We sold I think we sold 500 or 600 people at $1,000 each to Frederick Eklund. I didn't get to keep all of that. I got to keep about 20% of it. It was a good payday for me, and it worked well. And I met all these realtors, and then I started running ads to loan officers saying, hey, I've got over, 1,000 real estate agents in my database that I'd love to teach you how to do this stuff on social media, and then introduce you to realtors that need to learn it as well, so that you become a trusted advisor to them and a helper, not just a guy that can do a mortgage for them. And, that was my first really boom, now I got a little bit of popularity and I got a little bit of authority, and my ideal client started showing up wanting to work with me. And it just came from making posts on Facebook about, hey, here I am with this top producing realtor. Here I am with this top producing realtor. Then in 2018, I started doing that with a lot of the influencers. I'd go partner up with them, do stuff with them, and then the celebrities and stuff like that. So I've done that with probably, 25, 50 people over the years, and learned how to, like you said, leverage somebody else's brand that's already popular, already doing their thing, help them make a little extra money from their brand, and then leverage that for my audience to come in and buy my stuff. Because people are like, how's Stewman hanging out with Mike Tyson? How is he with Oscar De La Hoya? How is he with David Goggins? How is he with Ed Milet or Andy Frisella or whoever those people have been over the years? And so, I thought a little bit more than just posting on there going, hey, I need some referrals, or hey, here's what I do for a living.
I love referrals.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
How can I get in here and make it valuable and use is not the word, but leverage somebody else who's already got a following and stuff like that to be able to help them out in some way. And then that actually generate referrals and leads for me on the back end. So,
well, that's the beautiful thing is that you're leveraging your client's client in a lot of ways. Yep. And your client's client, I talk about this strategy a lot, is, don't necessarily always just go after your client, go after your client's client and then invite your client. And that's events, right? So we do consumer events. Realtors do consumer events. Well, who wants the consumers? Well, every other business in the world wants those consumers. So they become sponsors to those events. And then you generate leads for your sponsors and for yourself. And it's a win-win-win. Well, you were 3 steps ahead, to be honest. I mean, you leveraged celebrity, and then the celebrity got you your client's client, and then that allowed you to go after your client. And what a big, beautiful cycle that had to be. I absolutely love the strategy. Well, let me ask you this, right? So we've kind of come up to basically today. It's like, all right, what's next? What's next for Ryan Stewman? What are you doing? I'm genuinely interested and curious as to your next big project and how it's going to change the world.
I'm going to say something that probably is a what kind of a moment, but I when I got into this business in 2010, I mapped out what my perfect day was like and how much money it would take me to live my perfect day. It was right at about $1 million to live a nice life, and I've lived a nice life. It took me a few years to get to $1 million a year. Obviously, I wasn't the rich in 90 days guys like you see on the internet. It took me a few years to get there. About 2014, I think, was my first multi-million-dollar year to where I got to keep $1 million. And I look up, a couple of years ago, and I thought, man, I'm going to make a big run at it. In 2019, 2020, I'm going to make a big run at this, and I'm going to get hundreds of employees and go buy a big building and go, do all this, get a jet and, have all the fancy cars and stuff. And I did all that, man. I'm at a point where I'm like almost 45 years old, and I've checked literally everything off of my bucket list. I've smoked weed with every rapper. I've quit weed since, and I've been clean for 10 months, but I've smoked weed with every rapper, every celebrity. I've hung out, met, shared. I've been on stages 200-300 times at this point with just about anybody you can think of. Just very humbled and amazing life that I've had to meet all these people and do all this. And I look up about a year ago and I'm like, I'm not living my perfect day. Like I'm making more money than it took me to live my perfect day. For what, to be honest with you? And I don't really like managing people. I like actually being the man of the people. I don't like running employees. They can be a headache and everything else. And I'm like, I got like 30 employees and I got, all this isn't the life I want to live. I don't feel free. I feel strapped back to a desk again. And so, for me over the last year, what I've been doing is getting things back to where I can live my perfect day. And, reducing my overhead, and it's unfortunate, but letting, employees go and I had the taste of where we've, had 8-figure years, multiple 8-figure years. And I'm like, man, I look back, I was like, I didn't enjoy that year. Yeah, I got a lot of money that I'm sitting on, but I didn't enjoy that year. I worked 70 hours a week like I'm at the car wash again. And that's not why I got into business for myself. And I feel like there's an entrepreneurial purgatory where things are really good when you're self-employed. And then when you start scaling, there's this big gap between, finally getting everything back. And it might be a 10-year gap. I don't know. But for me, I was like, you know what? I'm going to get back down to my core people, the guys and ladies in my business that I know I can trust, that I know do their job. And we're just going to be like an elite team of Navy SEALs and run these numbers up and do what we want to do because I want to be free. So the next big thing for me is being able to do whatever I want when I want. I just came back from Cabo yesterday. I'd been there for 5 days and just worked from a hotel room in a resort on my laptop. And I just want to be able to, we all work so hard. And then if we get to a point where we're successful and we have a little money and some assets and stuff, then a lot of us feel like, oh man, I need $100 million to actually, I want 100 million like Ed Milet, or I want $1 billion like Jeff Bezos. And it's like, you really don't need all that, man. It's been my experience that if you can make 500,000 to $1 million a year, you can live a dream life. And 3-4 years of making that, then what happens is you've already bought the home, you already drive the car, you already got the watch, you already been on the vacation, you're like run out of stuff to buy. So then you start stacking the cash, and then the cash sits there, and it makes money. And if you got kids, you can build a legacy for them. But I'm at a point now where like my kids got money, I got money. What the hell am I working so hard for? What do I need $100 million for? What do I need? What I want to do is be free and be a good husband and a good father, and be able to say yes to my friends because I'm not busy at work, and be able to actually go enjoy time with them and be able to get away when I want to get away, So I bought a ranch 2 years ago, and I own 400 acres. I control 800 acres around it because we have leases and stuff attached to it. I have a little over 200 head of cattle, a bunch of tractors, 4-wheelers, nice ranch house, 14 ponds. We hunt, fish, farm, ranch. We do all that stuff out there. And that's what I enjoy doing the most, getting out of the city, because my house is in the middle of a huge city. My office is in the middle of a huge city next to the next city over from my house. I'm always around people. I'm throwing big events and everything else. I like to get away from my sanity out there. And that's the big deal for me, is I'm building something for my family that if we do go to World War III, or who knows where the hell we're headed as a country, then I've got food, I've got cattle, I've got fish, I've got greenhouses, I've got vegetables, I've got a house that operates off of the grid. And no matter what, I have used the money that I've made over the years to reinvest into something that will take care of my family no matter what. So this is going to sound like a crazy answer, but the next big thing for me is growing that herd of cattle from 200 to 750, because at 150 cows, I can make $1 million a year off of the steers that we sell to the market from that. And that'll allow me to live my dream life and not have to, and be able to work and help people when I want to. Because my ultimate big goal in this is at some point, give all this away, all the courses, all the training, all the event, have enough money to truly just give it away and help people. It's always baffling to me that, we'll just talk about the guys we were talking before, like Cardone and Dave Ramsey, who are worth hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. They still want you to buy a $10 course. It's like, bring your money, give it away and help the people.
Yeah.
And I want to be the first guy to do that. It's like, hey, I made all my money. Now I'm just giving it away and helping people for free. And I want to be like the Santa Claus of this industry at some point. So those are the next big moves for me.
I freaking love that. Hardcore closer becomes hardcore rancher.
Yeah. And a lot.
I
grew up on a horse farm, so it's kind of my nature, with my birth father was the world cutting horse champion in the 80s. And so we always had horses, and hundreds of them. And we were always ranching horses at that time. For me, I can't do a whole heck of a lot with horses. I'm not a show person on horses. So cattle makes more sense because you can sell them for beef and they're delicious. So I decided to go the cow route instead of the horse route.
I freaking love it. We're going to have you on again, man. Like you're kicking butt. You're in a good place, man. I've loved this conversation.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it too, man. And I just tried to, you asked me before we got on here, like, hey, what can we do to make this the best show for you, send them to buy your stuff or whatever. And I'm like, man, let's just make an impact on the people, and really I'm at a point in my life where that's my goal. How can I maybe I inspired you by the story. Maybe I made you think about living your perfect day and actually writing that down and figuring out what it'll cost you to live that life and actually going after that number. So maybe we help some people out today.
Yeah, I love that. I appreciate it. Final words of wisdom for that person that's listening that maybe he's going through a little bit of harder time right now, or a change, or something's happened and they really need a pep talk. What would you tell them?
There's one thing I've learned from facing adversity almost my entire life. It's that the struggle makes you stronger. Anytime you're struggling, it's God's test to see if you're strong enough to make it through that. He already knows you are. It's to see if your mindset is going to be strong enough to make it through that struggle. And so many people, the second they hit adversity, the second they hit a struggle, they go into a pity party, they go into introvertedness, they quit. That's your calling with whatever you believe in. I don't care, but that's your calling from God to fix that problem and to get better at it. And once you fix it and get better, you learn, you gain experience, you gain wisdom, and you struggle through it to get stronger. If you go to the gym and you lift heavier weights, you're going to struggle more, but one day you can pick that weight up with ease. If you start running, that first 500 yards sucks and you're going to struggle. But if you keep running, one day you can run 500 miles with ease. And anytime that you struggle, it makes you stronger. So if you're going through the struggle right now, look at that struggle as an opportunity to get stronger and strengthen that weakness that you're going through and come out the other side better because of it.
Drop the mic, bro. That is a great way to end this show. Well, I've learned a ton, and I've always loved these conversations with high-minded, super successful people. And our friend here, Ryan Stewman, has definitely hit it on the head. And I know he's inspired me, and I know he's inspired you if you'll just open it, receive it, and take it. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to express my appreciation to all of you. We have just hit over 500,000 downloads of Referrals Podcast. That is a big, big number, 500,000 downloads. And I just want to express my appreciation to you for making Referrals Podcast what it is today. And remember, join GenGen. That's join the generosity generation today, joingengen.com. And also check out Sales Talk with Sales Pro. Ryan leads that group. He does a post almost every single day in there that'll inspire you. Check that out on Facebook. Ladies and gentlemen, I love you. I appreciate you. We'll see you next time on Referrals Podcast.